Welcome to this Petauri Evidence webinar. At Petauri Evidence, we deliver market access and HUR support throughout the product lifecycle to bring new treatments to patients across global markets. Follow us on LinkedIn for more great content from our team. We hope you enjoy the discussion.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this Petauri Evidence live webinar. Thank you very much for joining us today. Today we'll be discussing the management of global market access materials, and in particular how using a centralised value platform can support pharma and medtech teams to streamline how they manage and share resources. So we'll start by providing a brief demo of our global value platform, followed by a recent interview with one of our long-standing clients that we'll share with you today, who will talk about his experience of using the platform. And then hopefully we'll have time for a short Q&A to wrap things up at the end. So by way of an introduction, my name is Sophie Streeton. I am an Associate Director in the Global Pricing and Market Access team here at Petauri Evidence. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Andrew Spencer. So Spence, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Sophie. So my name's Andrew Spencer. Most of you probably already know me as Spence, and Sophie will refer to me throughout as Spence. Everyone knows me as Spence, so please call me Spence. I am the Digital Director here at Mtech Access, and obviously what we're going to demo today is one of my team's deliverables.
Brilliant, thank you. So before we show the value platform, we wanted to just briefly touch on the reason for its existence. So why we developed the platform in the first place, what challenge was this trying to address for our clients? So as I'm sure everyone knows, global market access teams need to ensure that their local affiliate teams always have access to the latest product evidence, whether that's value communication materials, value messaging. And this can be a challenge both in terms of efficiently managing these resources, so looking at things like version control, managing supporting references, etc. And things can become quite scattered and hard to keep track of. And it can also be a challenge in terms of dissemination, so ensuring consistency and alignment of messaging across markets while also making sure that the needs and requirements of those local affiliate teams are met. So this is the challenge that the Global Value Platform addresses. We'll now have a look at the platform. So Spence, could you start by showing us how it works and what it does?
And I'm going to give you basically a whistle-stop tour of the core functionality and the navigation. So at the moment, you can obviously see this is still Mtech Access branded. We're obviously Petauri Evidence now, but this would be branded as per the client requirements. So what do I mean by that? I mean it could be product branded or it could be client corporate branded. It really depends on the client requirements. So this is our title page, and from here obviously you can see there's an admin section. There's also a franchises. If I click on the franchise, I can select a particular franchise and then drop into the dossier itself. Now, this is we call it a value platform / GVD platform. And what I'm going to do now is scroll through the global value dossier. And at the top right hand side, you can see almost like a little arrow with a number. And as I'm scrolling through, that little number will change. And what that is that's the resources that's associated with that particular page of the dossier, which I can then click on the arrow and I can then pull out the resources. So from here, I can access the references, I can access maybe some figures, and I can access maybe part of a clinical paper, etc., etc. And the idea being that it will enables the global team to create your GVD and push that out to the local affiliates so they can use it and they can access it. At the top, you've got jump to chapter, and obviously you can jump around to the particular chapter, you can print it, you can download it, you can jump to a particular page. I can pull out a navigation bar where you could preview the pages yourself and jump to those as well. And I guess in a nutshell, that's the core GVD viewer functionality. I'm just going to pop that back in. Now, along with the GVD, the platform also allows you to house a summary deck. I'm just going to jump to that now. Again, it's really quite consistent in the view you get. Similar functionality, you can scroll through the summary slide deck. Again, you can look at the references, you can look at the figures. Where this one's different, you can actually add pages to the slide deck. You can see I've added a couple of pages before. You can see it increases the number there in the little shopping cart, and then the actual local affiliates can download those slides, and then they can customize those slides and do what they want with them. And I guess depending on the the depth of the associated resources, it does depend to the level of the customization the local affiliates can do. So I guess just to briefly touch on that, what do I mean by that? I mean that obviously a PowerPoint presentation could have an image, and it could just be a flat image like a PNG that can't be edited by the local affiliates. But it could also be a PowerPoint object which could be edited by the local affiliates, and they could change the figures around, etc., etc. And there isn't a one-size solution for that. It's totally dependent on the client requirements. At the top, where this one differs, you can obviously see you can navigate through the sections right at the top, and we have this on the left-hand side. You can see a resources tab, and that's what actually controls the resources that are shown in these documents. I'm just going to jump to that now. And actually, what a number of our clients has found is that having the resources section separate like this enables the local affiliates to find the information they need right away. I'm in group view now, so basically you can see at the bottom there it's grouped the results by these tabs. You can switch to classic view. Again, you can then filter, and you can then find the information / the associated resources you need pretty quickly, and then you can download those. We're able to associate tags with each individual document, so everything becomes really easy to find. And also, you can have sets of associated materials on a per country basis, or you can have a single set for every country. There is no fixed fixed solution there. It's totally dependent on the client needs. Again, I touched on it that we can have franchises or we can have products. Again, you can change location here at the top right. So you could potentially have a GVD per country if you wanted, or you could just have a few slides that are different for a particular country, or just some of the resources and some of the materials that are different per country. So that's a whistle-stop tour of the navigation and the core functionality.
Great, thank you, Spence, for that overview. So in terms of the way that teams manage their resources, I guess in some ways the platform has similarities with SharePoint that they may, for example, be using already, but it has more sophisticated functionality and some additional sort of user features, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, it does indeed. So I'm glad you brought that up, Sophie. So what I'm going to do, let me just jump around to the reporting suite. So obviously, SharePoint, you can save files in SharePoint. We've all used it for years and years and years. We use it every day. However, we all know that there's bad practices with SharePoint version 1, version 1.1, latest 2, etc., etc. So there's always this kind of ambiguity around SharePoint and version control, and also there's no feedback of who's accessing what, which local affiliates are accessing what pages they're looking at, and for how long. And the actual platform enables you to get those stats. So, for example, we can look at the number of users we've got, how long they've been active for, what they've looked at, what pages they've looked at, what resources they've downloaded, what's the most popular resources, so that at a global level you can really make sure your materials are being used appropriately at local level. And I know some people might say that's kind of like a big brother, but actually this is where the platform really does come into its own, and enables the global team to really hone those materials and make sure their core messages and their core materials are being used appropriately.
Great, thank you very much, Spence. So we're now going to share a recent conversation that our team had with one of our long-standing clients with whom we collaborated when initially developing the platform.
Hi everyone, Tim Styche here from Smith+Nephew. I'm Health Outcomes Director. Big chunk of my role is really about proving value, but also we look at communicating value, and the GVD platform is a key part of our arsenal in doing that.
Brilliant. Perfect. Okay, well, let's just get started on the questions then. So, Tim, what were you looking for when you first commissioned this value platform?
We wanted something that would bring our value dossiers and our value materials to life and stop them being a dusty thing that people didn't look at or didn't engage with, into something that was actually commercially useful and used to engage with health technology assessment, with payers, in a structured way that made sense to everyone across the globe.
Perfect, that makes sense. And what did you have in place previously?
Our previous outputs were predominantly just PDFs of value dossiers, essentially. Very dry, very dusty, long documents that were either not used extensively or not used well.
That makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. And then, so why did you choose us when you're looking at the global value platform? What was it that made us stand out?
We'd worked with Mtech as was before, and we were always really impressed with their outputs and with their flexibility. But when they showed us the early prototype of what they wanted to do with the value platform, it was almost like they'd imagined what we actually wanted to take our value dossiers to, and really sort of perceived that need already. So it was win-win for us. We just we had the need, and Mtech had the potential to go and deliver on that.
Perfect. Okay. And then what are the most useful features for you and your colleagues? How do different stakeholders get the most out of the platform? Does it vary, or what does that look like to you?
I think it does vary. I think people in very sort of evidence-focused roles or evidence-focused elements of things like HTA engagement will use the inline references and resources a lot, and and really lean into those. People more at the front end absolutely love the ability to build custom slide decks, to build your own slide decks. You don't often get the opportunity to deliver dense value messages to a payer or to a health technology assessor across 50 slides. You've probably got a limited scope and a limited time window in which to deliver that. So that ability to tailor and to streamline your message to exactly what you want it to be is absolutely fantastic. And those are the two big features. But to be honest with you, the platform itself has such strong engagement across Smith+Nephew that I think everyone loves pretty much everything that's in the platform.
That's good. And has there been specific feedback from local affiliate teams just saying what they like and what works?
Yeah, I think the above, Kat, in all honesty. I think that inline referencing and resource ability, and that ability to tailor the slide decks has been the two prominent things. But people come to us, and I think probably the story of its success is that obviously we have different people in different franchises and different brands, and it's almost spreading across Smith+Nephew. People who aren't engaged with the platform, who don't have their brands on there yet, are coming to my team and saying, we'd love to have this ability to do this. How do we do that? And that's sort of where we've gone with the platform and why it's grown so much over the last 2 to 3 years.
That's great, Tim. How many users do you have? Is it like, are we talking a couple of hundred? How many do you have?
Yeah, that is a good question, Spence. I think we are near the 300 mark. We've obviously just done a recent upgrade to the platform, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Before we did that, we definitely had 300, and I think we're around that level again now. So yeah, so we've got good engagement from lots of different individuals in lots of different roles.
That's really good. And in terms of countries, then, Tim, is it just a couple of countries that are using it, or is it really more widespread?
No, it's across the globe. So we've got really strong footprint in the UK and the US, but I doubt there is a European country that doesn't have at least 5 or 6 registered users. And actually, we've just started to upload translated materials as well. So our users in France, Italy, Germany, and Spain can log in, and they can select their location on the platform, and they get the value dossier in their own language, which is obviously much nicer for them as a user experience and much more useful for them when they're engaging with those bodies.
That's great, Tim. So obviously we developed this platform together many years ago now. I think it was 2019, 2020. How has it changed over the years since you've been using it?
Yeah, good question. So there's a few bits that I think have changed. Some changes have actually come from Smith+Nephew's side. So we've had some security upgrades, and the one thing I will say is how strong Mtech have reacted to those and helped to keep us security conscious. Over the last year or two, we've been working more on the reporting, and now we can see that engagement within the platform. We can see how how many people are accessing resources, but also what our most popular resources are. And we have now got that localization function so that users in Italy, users in Spain can see that local content as well.
And that's great. And Tim, I guess what's gone well with working with us and what's not gone so well?
I think the not so well is going to be difficult to ask, so I'll answer. So I'll do the going well first. The number one thing I wanted to highlight as part of this Q&A is really that I think Mtech went above and beyond as a vendor in terms of what I'd expect, and that was particularly around the ramp up of security that I mentioned. So we rolled out single sign-on. We really heightened our security. At no point did Mtech want me or any of my team to be a middleman or a conduit between Mtech and our IT security teams. You were really, really happy to jump on a call, jump on with members of the Smith+Nephew team that you didn't already know, and actually work out and find solutions. And there was an example last week actually where there was a slight change to our IT security, and we had to react quite quickly to get the platform accessible again internally. So I think the number one thing I would highlight for Mtech is that flexibility and that willingness to find solutions and to get things working. I think the other thing, and this impressed me long before the value platform, is how easily you adapt and integrate with brand guidelines. So obviously we want everything to represent our brand and our actual company image, and you've generally you've smashed that every single time. We've not had to come back to you and say let's tweak this, or let's change this font, or let's use this image. You've just done it and you just rolled it out. And where we've made changes to the brand guidelines, we've had no pushback from Mtech whatsoever. You've taken them on board and you've integrated them into what you've done. So there's a long list of highlights, Spence. Lowlights, things that haven't gone well, I can't think of any. I mean, it would always be amazing if we could get everything as quickly as everyone internally wants it, but that sounds almost like a criticism, and I've had no issue whatsoever with sort of the timelines that Mtech have worked to over the years. It's just everyone, it's probably more of a story of its success that people now want the next thing on the value platform as quickly as they can get it.
So what's next then, Tim? What do you hope to see from the platform in the future? I know we've had brief discussions about AI and a potential AI assistant, but what are I guess you helped us worked with us to develop this as a product, and you helped steer this as well, obviously for yourselves as well as us. So what are your hopes and aspirations for the future? I know you mentioned the reporting, but I know I've mentioned AI. Is there anything else?
I think my number one objective and my number one aim over the next few years is probably one of scale. So I'd like to see every Smith+Nephew brand in there, and I'd love to see that available globally, and for all members of our global team to have that content in their own language. And I'll look forward to working with Mtech and Petauri in terms of delivering that. I think AI, when you mentioned it, Spence, the first time, I probably winced slightly and thought, how does that work? But I actually think the ability for somebody to almost ask plain language questions about the value, about sort of how they support things, that has huge potential for our teams, because that's how those teams go out and engage with those health technology assessors, they engage with payers, they get questions, and that can be very broad or it can be very specific, but the ability to potentially integrate that in the future, I think is really, really exciting. And then I guess the other one, which you've not mentioned, which I'd love to explore, is we obviously work together on some other projects, so some budget impact model work and so on and so forth. it would be great to bring some of that content in. So we've got a one-stop shop for all of our value communication stories in one place.
No, that sounds fantastic, Tim. Yeah, no, and I can't see any reason why we couldn't do that. I can't see any reason why those types of tools couldn't necessarily be housed on there. Obviously, it requires internet access, but most people have that nowadays. So in terms of the reporting, Tim, you mentioned we recently added the reporting in there for you. And what does it enable you to do? Does it enable you to kind of get feedback and measure the outcome? So how people are using it and develop the content? Is that how it works?
Yeah, we can see through the reporting, we can see which asset on the platform is popular, which ones are being engaged with. We can see the roles and which teams it's most popular with, which helps us obviously with training and rollout as we introduce new brands. But we can also see within the content itself which individual pages, which individual sections are the ones that people are going to, which obviously helps us to refine and tailor those future value dossiers, those future pieces of value communications we can tweak and tailor. So the reporting, we had some baseline expectations, which was really around key performance indicators of making sure that there was engagement with the platform. But actually what's been delivered is going to help us to refine and finesse and really maximize what we do going forward. So yeah, it's absolutely fantastic, Spence.
And what difference do you think the platform has made to your business overall? I mean, you touched on some of the value of you're not having those dusty DVDs which aren't being used properly, but what's kind of the bigger difference overall, if there is one thing?
I think is obviously, in terms of being able to take a consistent message about the value of our products and our technologies to health technology assessors, to payers, is absolutely key. In terms of market access, it's absolutely key to being able to do that. And I feel like the value platform unlocks that a little bit. It doesn't go the whole way. We still have to train. We still have to make sure that we've got the actual value message around our brand, but the platform itself is helping to unlock that. And I think one thing that I would say is that our teams have become more evidence aware and more market access aware and more sort of conscious of what we need to be doing and what we need to be saying. So it's almost acted as a catalyst as we've improved and increased our market access focus. I think the value platform was really sat under that as a driver in being able to do that.
That's really, really interesting. What advice would you give to other companies that are considering implementing a similar solution? Would you recommend the value platform or specific aspects of the platform?
Yeah, absolutely. I would 100% recommend it. I would recommend two things, I think. Number one is go a little bit slowly and probably go a little bit slower than that. So don't try and launch value dossiers on a full platform for every single technology you have or every product you have on day one, because it's a lot of work, and actually training and engaging internally is a lot of work. So I think that measured approach and that calm approach is probably the right way to do it. I think as well, I would thoroughly recommend the reporting. So it really helps with engagement. When we very first launched the platform, we knew how many users we had registered, but we didn't know how many of them were actually engaging with the platform. And that really brings it to life and helps you to know how useful a asset and how useful the platform is itself. And then thirdly, I think don't be afraid of allowing Mtech, Petauri to engage with your internal teams. So as I mentioned earlier, in terms of the benefits, I didn't get involved in a lot of those IT security or those IT kind of networking questions. To be honest with you, no one wants me involved in those because I don't understand a lot of it. But allowing and having that faith in Mtech, having that faith in our internal teams to find the solutions, that faith paid off. I didn't have to sit on endless calls about IT security protocols, scratching my head. the solution just works. So I think the third one is really about trust, and just trusting Mtech to be able to deliver the solution.
That's really good to hear. Good to hear. Anything else you'd like to talk about the global value platform, or anything else you'd like to add in that we've not touched on?
Don't think there's anything specific other than to just say thank you to Spence and to everyone in the team, really, and that is a sincere thank you. Sometimes these things can seem daunting. You're building a platform, there's a lot of internal and external hurdles to overcome, but it was never anything other than a complete joy, really. The project catch-ups were always clear and concise, and we knew what direction was happening. There was never a moment where I questioned that there was some kind of progress. There was never a sticking point in the road. So yeah, other than a very, very sincere thank you, I've nothing else to say other than to fully endorse the platform, and hopefully other companies will take it on board and get that same experience that we've had, because it's nothing but positive.
That's brilliant to hear. No, thank you, Tim. That was really useful, and thank you for walking us through your experiences of using a global value platform with us. So thank you for that.
Pleasure. Thank you both.
I hope that real world example helped bring the platform to life for everyone listening. We have some time now to finish with a few questions that have come in. So thank you very much to those who sent questions in ahead of the webinar. Spence, to start then, we have a question from someone who says that they are a global market access manager and they have a large number of materials to distribute to local teams across multiple countries. So I know you mentioned earlier a situation where a company may have materials for multiple brands or franchises. So could you maybe just talk a little bit more about how the platform can help someone in that situation or teams in that situation to manage and disseminate their resources effectively?
Sure. So it's an ideal use case for the platform. You're going to get the most out of it in that use case. So the more resources you have on there, the more associated materials you have on there, the more benefit you're going to get. And obviously there is a cost benefit as well, and in terms of scale. So the more things you put on there, the greater benefit you're going to get. We are able to obviously host materials by product. We're able to host materials by franchise. There isn't a one size fits all. So what do I mean by that? We will talk to you, we'll engage with you, we'll look at your materials that you have, that you want to get on the platform, or that you're thinking about putting on the platform, and we will advise what's best. Like I said, there isn't a one size fits all. We have clients with different needs and different circumstances, and the platform is pretty flexible and can deal with most things. You essentially also have roles. Each user will have a role, and what they can access can be restricted by that role. So it is really, really genuinely very, very flexible. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So next, we also had a question from someone about how to optimize this kind of activity, market access activity, in countries where a company doesn't have those large local teams of affiliates. So if local resource is limited, so could you talk a little bit about what the platform offers global teams in this situation?
Yeah, sure. Again, another ideal situation for the platform. So obviously you'd have your global teams that would make the materials, so they would be taking the brunt of the burden to create those materials and making sure they work appropriately and disseminating those out to the local affiliates. Now, obviously that local affiliate, if there's not very many of them, they can lightly customize it if they like, and then they can use that accordingly. So again, I think it's one of those where you are getting the benefits of the system because of the materials are getting curated globally and then tweaked potentially locally. Does that make sense, Sophie? Does that answer that one?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And I think that's a good point to kind of note. That's the importance of the thinking about developing the global materials in the first place, I guess, comes into that, and having that strategic thinking in terms of writing and developing the materials with that in mind. So yeah, that's great. And then how do you see the platform continuing to develop in the future in terms of us continuing to evolve it to kind of best meet our clients' needs? I know in the conversation that we showed, you briefly discussed AI, for example. We've also briefly touched on kind of scaling up the platform to house broader tools. So it's not just the traditional suites of global value comms materials, is it?
No, it's kind of nice actually, because it's shaped by our clients, and that's a really nice thing to say. It's shaped by you guys essentially, and basically we've touched on the AI aspect, and we've touched on potentially putting like an AI chatbot in there so you can ask it questions. So we're talking about natural language questions, and the answers would be based on the materials that are housed inside the platform. Now, obviously, it could answer part of that and part of the internet, or vice versa. And there's lots of other options and lots of things we can look at. And I think we're at the stage now where we're exploring that kind of stuff. One of the things that actually Tim touched on in his video, which we're looking into at the moment, is housing some of our web tools. Obviously, we don't just do platforms. We do iPad tools. We do web tools, budget impact models, etc., etc. And actually, what we're looking at doing is expanding the value platform to be this, I guess, nerve center that houses all sorts of materials and brings it all together in one place, so that the country affiliates, your global teams, will have access to all the materials under one place and under one login, essentially. And I think that's what's really exciting, because then I think you really get some value there. And it's added value, because once you put those types of materials in there, you can then track them, and you can go, well, actually, on that budget impact model, it might even be an Excel budget impact model. It doesn't necessarily have to be a program tool, and you could potentially look at and go, well, these are the pages we're looking at, this is the amount of time we're spending, and it will link back into the reporting interface. So there's lots of exciting things happening in the future. So yeah, just kind of watch this space.
Yeah. And then I guess just to kind of wrap up with a final question about next steps if people are interested in hearing more about the platform. I know, Tim, our client in the video, talked about sort of our ways of working in terms of working with client IT teams. So, how do clients kind of start? How do they go about working with us and implementing the platform in their organisation?
So I would say reach out to us. Let's have a conversation. Let's start the conversation. Let's get a demo in. Let's really understand your needs, what you're thinking about putting on the platform, what your needs are over an extended period of time as well, not just year one. What audience are you looking at it going to, etc., etc. And it's not, like I said, it's not a one size fits all. We are a consultancy, and actually we do hang our hats on that in terms of recommending a solution and coming up with the best ways for you to navigate those types of materials and for your affiliates to find those types of materials. I know it sounds like it could be just a simple thing, but actually once you get under the hood and really understand the materials, it's potentially not. And having the tag set up right, having the categorization set up right, having the dossier correctly modularized so that actually bits can be tweaked and switched out, etc., and easily updated, it all plays a part. And again, Sophie, I want to kind of come back to your writing team as well. Even the writers that we've got can actually help shape that as well, and do shape that.
Yeah, absolutely. And when thinking about the structure and the content of things like global dossiers and the accompanying slide decks, we think about how that will be sort of transferred into something that can be really intuitive and easy to use in the platform. So yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. I think that was everything in terms of questions. So that brings us to the end of our webinar today. I hope that was useful for everyone. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us. And yeah, please do get in touch if you'd like to hear more about the platform and how we can support you. Thanks,
everyone. Thanks.